welcome to another episode of Exposing Ourselves with Travis and Matt. I'm Travis Ritchie, and with me is my good pal,
Matt Runquist. Yes, it's me, Matt Runquist, here
Hey,
in the
Matt.
Midwest. Oh,
Yeah, and
hi, Travis.
I am in Ojai, California right now. I am
Shit, I
house sitting
stepped on
for
your
some
joke.
friends.
Oh, good.
No, that you set up the joke.
Okay.
But I am house sitting for a lovely sheepdog. No, a collie of some kind. I don't
Sounds like a
quite know.
collie.
It's not a collie. I think it's a sheepdog, and then a really pretty cat who I am not apparently allergic to, which is nice because ever since I was a teenager, I developed an allergy to cats, and I do love cats, so it really sucked that I was allergic to them. But they also have 14 chickens,
14
including
chickens?
yes, indeed, including two roosters who were up at the crack of dawn, waking me up at like 6 a.m. this morning, which I am unaccustomed to on my days off.
I am
And
really hoping that we get a little bit of a cameo from the Roosters at some point in the next 45 minutes to an hour.
well, he was certainly making a lot of noise just before we started recording, and I don't know what was going on with him, but he seems to have calmed down now, and I'm on the side of hoping that he doesn't make any noise.
Well,
But
if I understand Roosters correctly, he was horny.
Oh, that could have been. I mean, because it's two roosters and I guess 12 chickens, so that makes some sense. I did just have lunch, and it was fresh chicken eggs, um, fried with peanut butter on a sandwich. So a fried egg peanut butter sandwich with fresh farm chicken. Like I just plucked them out of the hutch yesterday.
Straight from the cloaca.
Yeah, well, this is the show where Matt and I expose each other to new things.
I
From
like
Matt,
music.
our music, and he's going to expose me to some of his favorite music, and I like movies.
Yeah, and he's going to expose me to some of his favorite movies. Although I think he has a grand plan, everybody. He's not doing this willy-nilly like I am. He has a big plan.
I actually think that my plan is adjusting a bit because what I've enjoyed the last 2 weeks is doing kind of a theme and having, since you have a better idea of what music you like and you want to expose me to, which I love, I have these last 2 weeks matched my movie kind of to your selection. So,
Dear
but
listeners,
given,
I want to now, Travis, cover your ears.
yeah,
Listeners, I
oh,
want you to
I
know
can't. I've got
I
earbuds. Covering my ears would do nothing.
it was a joke.
It was hilarious.
Listeners, I want you to know there is no grand plan on my side. So basically, Travis has now declared his intention to have a theme based on my whims. And frankly, I'm about it.
But I will still. I think my grand plan is going to kind of be more fluid. So I'm not letting go of my plan.
I like that. I like that.
But I just so my other thing. It was interesting to listen to last week's show and see how many times I was umming and uhing, which I, as an actor, should be much better at.
I got to
And
admit,
as an improviser.
I didn't notice your ums and ahs because I had about 3 to 4 times as many as you did. The fun thing is, though,
Really?
is you might not know this because I eliminated a lot of them while editing the show, Travis.
Really? Did you eliminate yours and not mine?
Well, just
That's
but I have this thing. I do active listening, so I spend a lot of time while you're talking going, yes, mm-hmm, yes, uh-huh.
oh
And
yeah.
I
I'm okay
don't.
with that.
Yeah, well, I didn't like it, so I got rid of a lot of them.
Oh, interesting. I can see how that doesn't work so well with radio too, because when you're listening to someone and talking to them, you get that extra channel of visual information where you can see them nodding and all that. But it did remind me what you just said is when I started Boy Cow Radio, my other podcast, back in 2006.
Wow, you're
before
old.
anybody knew what a podcast was. I know I'm old, or am I just ahead of my time, or both?
The curve is in your
but
rear view mirror, that's for sure.
Exactly. But I used to go through that podcast and edit the crap out of it, where I was cutting out all like pauses and all little things like what I just did. And so it was actually very interesting to listen to. The pace is really good on that, but this time I do need to, I think, be a little more deliberate with my speech. That's all, and possibly even slow down just a little bit.
I like that. I like that. So, I guess maybe I will take the reins from you this time
Yeah,
and say,
let's start with yours because I'm excited about it.
no, no, we're not going to start with mine. We got to do
Oh,
our little recap thing. How have you
like our
been?
weekly recap.
How have you been since the last time I saw you, Travis?
I have been very good. So I finished my semester of school. I have been doing online college at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, actually. And I did, so that was one of the things I did when I came back from Japan.
Can I have a little
And
aside here for everyone?
yeah, yeah,
So, what you all don't know is that I am about 4 miles from the campus of the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee right now, and Travis is about 2,100 miles from the campus of the University of Wisconsin
right.
Milwaukee right now.
I was much closer when I started school, and then I've been all over the place. So I didn't. It helped that I was a Wisconsin resident, but they had a online only option through the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee, and it was quite an experience doing that. And so what I did was basically I did it because I just wanted to not feel like my pandemic was like I was wasting my pandemic. I had just finished writing my novel and Biden had just been elected, and so I was like, oh well, if he's going to do student loan forgiveness, maybe this is a good time to get some student loans and finish my degree, which I never did. And I did my first semester of full time classes was great. I made the dean's list, which
Wow.
considering, yeah, do you know what my GPA was when I left the University of Minnesota?
I'm going to guess it was below 2.
It was below 2. It was, I think, a 1.87.
Oof.
And yeah, yeah. So to come back to school and make the dean's list my first semester back was quite an achievement. I felt good about. And the second semester, I was back in LA and had been in my car accident already. And so I was doing physical therapy. It was much harder. I think I had a statistics class that I absolutely hated how they taught it online because basically they just gave us a book and said, "Here, learn statistics," which is not the way to do that.
How are you earning your paycheck exactly? Well, we gave you the book, didn't we?
Yes. And that was with a TA helping too. So, but I did full time, and then I had picked up a job in the middle of that semester and had to move in the middle of that semester. And I feel like there was one other thing that was really like adding to my pile of things. So this year, starting with spring semester, I did halftime, and then in the fall I did halftime again. But despite the fact that this last semester was two of the easiest classes I've ever taken, one of my communications classes, and then one was dinosaurs, and it was my science class. Oh man, I love dinosaurs still so much.
Everyone loves dinosaurs.
Which, side note, is one of the things I'm enjoying most about these chickens is because they are
dinosaurs.
tiny little dinosaurs.
Speaking of how old we are, folks, when we were growing up, we didn't know that birds were dinosaurs.
Yes.
We
yes.
all thought they were lizards. And well, we didn't think birds were lizards. We thought dinosaurs were lizards.
Right.
And this is
we didn't know that Tyrannosaurus had feathers.
We didn't know Tyrannosaurus had feathers. There was one fossil. We had one fossil, you young children. We had one fossil that had feathers, and now everybody's just like, yeah, birds are dinosaurs.
Right?
Yep,
right?
Archaeopteryx.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then not only that, but the theory of how they went extinct, the asteroid, was a hotly contested theory back in our day.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And now it's considered established fact. We've found the site. We know where it landed, how it all went down.
Is that Chicxulub, the one in Mexico? Okay.
Yep, exactly.
All right.
That was pretty great. Anyway, all that to say, I handed in my last paper on Sunday and got my grade. I got a C in communications and an A in dinosaurs, and I'm okay with that because I was so stressed out from this semester, even though it was so easy. So I am now going to step away from school for a while and focus on being creative. I
Yeah.
have so many books that I need to write. I have to write my Decimus sequel. I have to write the. I have to finish. I have to do the revisions on the Inspector Chronicles book, and I have at least 2 or 3 pilots that I need to write, TV pilots, and a spec script. So it's a lot, and school was just one too many things that I was putting on myself, and so it created this creative logjam for me. So anyway, good thing I've taken on this podcast.
Yeah, well, this is the fun stuff, right? You watch something, you talk about it, it's easy peasy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I also
How
had
about you?
I had a good week as well. We had a band practice, which is funny, mostly because my band is called No Practice Only Play. Uh,
Oh, I love that you're still in a band.
yeah, well, it's not still. It's this year. I
Oh,
had a
this is a
friend
new band.
who invite. Yep, this new band. Hadn't played for like 20 years. A friend invited me to play in his cover band, and we did a little bit. And I was like, "Hey, we should play for my birthday." I had a birthday party for myself. I often do when I get to those big round numbers, and he bailed on me. So with like a week to
Oh,
go, so I reached out to some friends of mine that I knew played instruments but weren't currently in a band, and I was like, "Hey, can we learn 2, 3 songs for my birthday?" Right? We had one practice a week ahead of time, and then we played at my birthday. There's a YouTube video. I can drop a link to it if you'd like.
yes, please
It
put
wa-
it in the show notes.
it was a lot of fun. And yeah, and so we called the band No Practice Only Play because we were just like, let's just send it. We're just gonna, who cares if it's bad? Like, we want to do the fun thing. And we did the fun thing. And here's the thing, Travis, this was rolling the dice. Outdoor party in Wisconsin on October 1st. But
Oh,
we
wow.
but we did it.
Is October 1st particularly? I feel like that's
It can vary.
great, beautiful fall weather.
No, it can very easily be below freezing
Oh,
on October 1st.
really?
I mean,
Oh,
it can also be 70 degrees, right? Like there's a, this is Wisconsin. There's a wide range of possible choices.
can I make a suggestion for you, please?
Absolutely.
I want so much. My brain locked onto this idea while you were talking, and I cannot let it go. I want you to call your band Nope Opie.
Instead of no pop, no nope
Uh,
opie. Yeah, I like
Nope
that.
Opie as a word, like
No,
spell
I
it
got
out. Nope
yeah, nope
Opie.
opie. Yeah,
And
that's
as
good
people,
actually
and
because
then you make a story of where the name came
now
from,
that
and you're
we're
like, oh, it means,
practicing, we can't really be no practice only play anymore. So I will bring Nope Opie to the group, but
thank you.
I'm definitely on board. Uh,
I love that.
I have
And what an
always wanted
original,
to
interesting
have.
band name.
I have always wanted to name a band Your Favorite Dinosaur. Uh, what's your favorite dinosaur? Oh, they're a band. No, no, no.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were asking me what my favorite dinosaur, like if
No,
you
no.
knew what my
Right,
favorite
no, the
dinosaur was, and
idea
I
the
didn't.
idea is the band is named Your Favorite Dinosaur. And then each album would be like, the first album would obviously be named after my favorite dinosaur.
Which is
The Stegosaurus, obviously.
interesting.
Oh,
Okay.
I realize it's a childish choice, but come on. Big
No,
plates on
I
the
love
back,
it.
spiked
A
tail.
Stegosaurus is goddamned interesting
It
dinosaur.
is. It's a
like,
fascinating dinosaur, and just a
yeah,
tiny little peanut head. Like,
yeah,
there
yeah,
are some small-brained dinosaurs, some bird-brained dinosaurs, but the
yeah,
Stegosaurus is pretty fantastic for how tiny its head is.
yeah.
You know,
Wasn't that one that had an additional brain in its butt, like at the base of its tail?
I believe that was one of the herbivores that was so
Stegosaurs are
large.
herbivores.
Uh, but it was like a brachia, like a giant, one of the really,
Yeah.
really like the house-sized ones.
Actually, I heard that those had thems had
Thems.
more than 2 brains. Like they had like little helper brains.
I think we can all agree that no matter how many brains they had, it was not enough.
No, no, no. But one of the things I learned in my dinosaur class was how smart ornithids were. The more bird-like raptors and
Okay,
T-Rexes and those
sure.
like the hunting dinosaurs were generally very, very smart. Or even hadrosaurs and duck-billed dinosaurs, which were more meat eaters, were had community and socialization, a social structure.
Wow.
They think now, yeah, which is
Fascinating.
fairly
Well,
interesting.
we are going off the rails here, but this is all good stuff. Let me tell everyone what your assignment was this week. So
Please,
I
please.
chose a band that I've been listening to quite a bit recently. Um, they are what I like to call pop metal. A lot of satanic imagery that's all very tongue in cheek. This is the band Ghost, led by Tobias Forge, who's a Swedish headbanger dude who came up through the very, very heavy metal scene. And he started this new project around 2010 that was a little poppier and really revolved around a mysterious cult like figure, Papa Emeritus, so sort of a dark pope, and his nameless ghouls who played the instruments. So I put together a playlist. It's available on YouTube Music. And Travis, tell us what you thought. You listened to it a couple of times.
I listened to it, I think, 3 times through. And what's interesting is because I can't figure out how to turn off autoplay on my phone. So when I get to the end of the album, and this is an album I had never heard any single one of these songs, but at some point a song that I was familiar with played, and I was like, "Oh, I've heard this song." And then I would look, and it wouldn't be the same. It was something by Darkness, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Um, and but I gotta say, you did a great job putting this playlist together for me because I found it to be almost completely delightful.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that the music was complex, and especially the instrument playing, all the different instruments and layering of tune and melody and beat was none of it was overpowering. I liked the singer. I don't know if it was one guy or multiple singers, but generally his voice is uh, nice to listen to. It's not harsh like many metal bands are to me, where it sounds more like screaming. I do. Um, so yeah, and all the songs were different. So the first song you had starts with a really good beat, and I was hiking and I found myself my pace was picking up, and I found that it was a really good kind of beat to walk to, and ended up my watch was tracking my hiking, and it ended up like beating my normal average mile time, my time. So all
So
that to
for
say,
the
I really.
listeners, the
Mhm.
first song is "Square Hammer." Now, this is sort of the song that, to the extent that Ghost is a cultural phenomenon at this point, this is the song that brought them to sort of big, wide public attention. And it's kind of funny because it's not actually on one of their full albums. It's on an EP that has 4 cover songs, and then this was like the original song on it to sort of act as a an enticement for people to
Oh,
purchase it.
interesting.
But it's a fantastic song. It has all of the themes of Ghost with like there's this mysterious dark figure who's being called upon to provide power for someone. It's all like spooky, but not too spelled out, right?
It's a little spooky, and the different sound vibes that you get are range from that kind of like spooky dark like driving rhythm to something a little bit more. There's something a little bit more gentle here and there,
Mm-hmm.
and then some of it, and you could hear a lot of the like European influences. So
Absolutely. So Tobias Forge is Swedish, and ABBA rules everything in Sweden, even
oh, I
even
would not have
metal.
said anything Yabba, but I was thinking much more like 80s where you've got like Europe and the
Hmm.
Final Countdown type sounds.
Yeah. So
In fact, there is a moment where you
mhm.
have that kind of Final Countdown beginning.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And there's uh, their most recent album Impera, which came out in 2022. There are 3 tracks from that on this playlist, and he's very much acknowledged that the sort of hair metal of the 80s was a big influence for this album in particular. Sort of Def Leppard pyromania type of big big sounds, big drums, big big arenas.
Yeah, yeah, I really enjoy, and the mixing of all those sounds together was, like I said, complex and just kind of nuanced at the same time.
Hmm.
So I did enjoy that. That's not to say I didn't have some nitpicks.
Tell us.
Well, first of all, anytime I'm listening to any music and I hear the word God or hear religious, anything that's religious, imagery, I do tend to bristle a little bit, and that's me. That's on me. That's not the fault of the music. Where this is kind of that's the point. That's what things they were going for. Except I will also say that I couldn't understand the lyrics because the lyric mixing, the vocal mixing was too low. So it was the music I was listening to was heavily music and instrumental, and the vocals were almost just another instrument mixed in rather than being the point. So I wasn't able to appreciate the poetry of the lyrics, which
Did
I
you
didn't
did you end
actually.
up looking up the lyrics at
I
all?
meant to. I meant to, but I didn't have time, and I should have maybe asked you for time before we recorded this so I could do that. But I didn't.
Yeah, no, I would agree that his voice is an instrument. One little tidbit about the band is that when he started this project, he always intended to be the primary. There go the roosters. Hopefully,
That's
you
the
all
rooster.
were able to hear that. Um, the When he started the project, he intended to be the primary songwriter and guitarist, but he did not want to be the vocalist.
Oh,
He's
interesting.
he's expressed actually in interviews that he writes the songs and then doesn't really get to play them at all because when he's performing he doesn't perform with an instrument. He's just roaming the stage and sort of getting the crowd riled up and interacting with people, but he's not he doesn't get to play. So he tried to hire a vocalist to play the main character Papa, and the person that he had chosen didn't want to do it, and he couldn't find anyone else, and
Interesting.
so finally he just decided to do it himself, and obviously it's been very, very successful. But I think there is part of Tobias Forge that does not want to be the guy up in front doing the thing.
That's interesting. But he is in. You're saying he ended up being the guy.
He is the guy, and he's does a pretty fantastic job of it. Did you end up watching any videos?
Oh no, I
Okay.
meant to, and especially since our playlist, I noticed, because I'm fairly new to YouTube Music, and so when you're in YouTube Music in the app at least,
Hmm.
it has where you can watch the video or listen to the song, and I meant to, but I was on, like I said, on hikes for most of this, and then dealing with school
Yeah,
and then coming.
he's become a pretty competent performer. He's no Janet Jackson or anything, but does a lot of like hand gestures and interaction with the audience that's quite endearing.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, there was.
Go ahead.
Well, I have a couple other nitpicks.
Sure.
I guess not a couple other. Let's see. I said that one. One other one though. There is a song, and I can't remember what the. I'm trying to figure out which song it is, and I was going to look it up before we started recording. I feel like it's right in the middle.
I might be able to
Um,
tell you if you describe it.
there's just a lyric where they say something, and then it's like something about heart of like
Darkness at the
or
heart of my love.
thunder,
Oh,
maybe. Is it thunder
oh,
of your heart, thunder in your heart,
oh. I'm not.
thunder?
I'm not sure. This is
It's
good
like the
radio
line
right
is
here.
something like, "I hear the thunder of your heart," or something like
Okay.
that, right? And it feels like there's a beat that it should go to, but how he sings it is something like, "I hear the thunder of your heart," and it's like it's like skips like a three-quarters of a beat. It's not even like an off beat, and it annoyed me every single time I heard it. And it's completely on purpose, and they do it multiple times in the song. and
I'm actually
it's the
curious
chorus.
what this is now.
I do, I do. If we try to find it, can we cut this bit out?
Or we can find it and then insert that. We can find it after we're done recording and then come back and insert into this
Wait, now I
spot.
want to find it. Like I
Oh,
feel
he's
I could do
listening.
it. Can we do lyrics on these? I can also
You
turn
can
down.
do lyrics. I can hear that
Uh,
through your microphone.
yeah, that was a nice long. I don't know that this is the song.
No? Well, that's not. That's the one at the end. So
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I. Oh, here are the lyrics.
it could be Cerise actually. It's okay. We can cut this part out. Let's give a clap so
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can
yeah.
get. Let's get synced just so I can find this real quick.
Okay, ready?
Yeah, you count. Welcome back.
Uh,
It's
we
Cerise.
It's Cerise. We found it. We found the song, and we found that my issue with it was due to not hearing one of the words that's in the lyric. I thought the lyric was, "I can hear the thunder, I can feel the thunder that's breaking in your heart," and that's the actual lyric. And I thought it was, "I can feel the thunder that's breaking your heart," and it felt so weird because I couldn't really hear that in.
Yeah.
Anyway. Whew. But I will say thank you. This was an interesting educational, and I will probably keep some of those songs in my playlist.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
That's great news. All
yeah.
right.
So Matthew's assignment, based on his assignment, I asked him if he had, as you heard last week, if you heard last week, I asked Matthew if he had ever seen Hellraiser by Clive Barker, and he had not. And I thought that's not only an important movie to. Sorry, everybody, that was my ding. If you heard that, I hate it when I'm listening to podcasts and I hear their computer ding.
It didn't
I
come
will
through,
turn that
but
off.
now we're gonna have to cut that out.
Well, maybe. But you know what? There's one person who will suddenly have
Oh,
looked to
that
see
one.
what.
Was that mine? Am I dinging or are you? Now
Oh,
I
I
don't
didn't hear
know.
it. You might have just heard it based on my. It came through from my end. I don't know,
Okay.
but I hate it when I'm listening to podcasts and there's a ding and I'm like, oh, is that mine or a phone that buzzes the exact same way mine does? Anyway, but I assigned Matthew Hellraiser because it's not only a pretty good horror movie, but it is an important horror movie as it is probably Pinhead is probably my one of my two favorite horror movie villains alongside Freddy Krueger. And I think that's because he has so much story. There's so much backstory about him, and also he has a personality of his own, which I've never liked watching Jason or Michael Myers or Leatherface because they don't really have personalities. And I love it when a villain, when a monster can actually communicate, and so that's what this is. Although interestingly enough, Pinhead did not originally have a name. Pinhead was originally just lead demon or something like that, and so it wasn't until
What are
the
they called? The Cenobites?
Cenobites,
Yeah.
yes. And so the he wasn't called Pinhead until the sequels because the apparently the crew and then the fans started calling him Pinhead, which makes sense because he's a guy with pins in his head. Like, what else are you going to call him? So yeah. Should I tell? I mean, anything
How
else?
much?
Should I set
No,
this
no.
up?
So I really enjoyed it. Also, we'll start there. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
I am not a horror movie buff by any stretch of the
Okay.
imagination, but some of my favorite movies that I have ever watched are horror movies.
Yeah.
But I don't have a strong stomach. I'm not a huge fan of jump scares. I don't really like disgusting for the sake of disgusting, which I think a lot of stuff that's out there is.
Yeah.
And so
So the gore porn.
yeah, gore
thing
for the
that's right
sake of
now.
gore is not.
Yeah.
And so and so interestingly, Hellraiser starts with some pretty gory stuff.
It is not. It is not for the faint of heart. It is a fairly gory movie.
It is, but it's not wall to wall. And when I started this movie, I was a little concerned because you start and then the brother. Oh God, I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name. Uh,
Frank.
Frank gets torn apart right at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then Pinhead walks around in the gore for a little bit.
Yes. And
And
puts his face back together.
yeah, I actually half expected the face to start talking there.
So did I. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I rewatched it recently too, and it's funny because my memory has conflated. I used to watch horror movies like this because my older brothers, who were 10 and 12 years older than I was, were teenagers. So, like, when this came out in 1987, I was 10, but my brothers were 20, I guess,
yeah, yeah,
and
and this was
22.
ideal for
So,
them.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I really really liked it. I would agree the bad guys, the Cenobites, have a ton of character. The the idea makes sense, right? And it is a fundamentally like 80s concept of horror of like you want to enjoy yourself, you're going to be punished, right? Like that's
yeah, yeah,
that's the thing that we've always oh the who's going to be the first one to die, the one who's having sex, right?
yeah, exactly, yeah.
And this movie sort of takes that to the nth degree. But I thought it was a fascinating story. I did wish that I did wish that the main female character, not the final girl,
Yeah, the wife.
the wife. I did wish she was a little more fleshed out, but like I understood her story and I, like I get it. And I thought that was a really good story and an unexpected story. Based on my first few moments with her, like I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh, okay, right? This is
yeah.
someone
So that's
who's
Julia, as played by
Julia.
Claire Higgins,
Yeah,
who was
Julia.
actually supposed to be, I guess, the star of the series. But she opted not to come back after the second one. She was in the second one, interestingly enough. Even if you haven't seen it,
No,
which
I
is a
haven't. I
surprising
have. I
thing
have
to
not
hear
seen any
based
of the
on
Hellraiser movies.
yeah. So based on how the first movie ends, one wouldn't think she could be back,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
she does.
I mean, it's funny, right? Because the movie does play with the line between life and death, and so, on a certain level, you're like, yeah, of course. I mean, anybody could be back because you can just bleed on the floor and, and they'll pop out of. But
Yeah, yeah,
it, I thought it was really, really good. The interesting thing about it, from the perspective of someone who's never seen it before, is right. The Cenobites are not really the bad guys, right? Frank is the bad guy, and to a lesser extent, Julia is the bad guy.
hmm
So the humans, this is something you do to yourselves, right? Like that. It
right.
was really
It's
really fantastic. But of course, the Cenobites are bad guys too because they make a deal with the daughter, and then totally just like, no, never mind, we're not gonna. I mean, to be fair, Pinhead does say maybe, so.
yes, yes. I mean, he's yeah, he's not he yeah, he's not being unfair or untruthful. I
He's
think
not being
I think
untruthful. I
there's
do think he's being unfair, but he's not being untruthful.
possibly. There's certainly, yeah, you can't accuse them of being untruthful ever. And I think that that's an interesting thing is that they wear their intentions on their leather sleeves and really tell you what you're in for.
Do you so as someone who's more steeped in the mythology here, do the Cenobites correspond to the seven deadly sins, or is that just like okay? It's just sort of like, oh, there's a fat one, so maybe this is gluttony, but yeah, that's not really what's going on.
Not that I'm aware of.
It's
And I
very
think,
it's very out of like, it's very original, right? Like I mean, I
yeah,
realize that's a totally dumb thing to say as somebody who's experiencing it 35 years late, but like that's it. I didn't realize like it's like nothing else before it. It really is. Like, I mean, sure,
yeah.
they're, you could say, okay, well, you're calling them Cenobites, but they're really demons, or in, like, if you're gonna have a vocal tick, Siemens, but
Well, also they weren't necessarily from hell. They were from another dimension.
yeah, but I mean, again, that's kind of a distinction without a difference. But like, it's clear that there's like something going on there that someone has thought about. And so this is an interesting thing, right? Is because you gave me a hard time last week for going, well, you've got all these questions about how and why don't you have this about this, right? And I would say the reason that I don't wonder, like, oh gosh, where are these Cenobites coming from is because I feel like somebody has answered this question at some point. Somebody has
Yeah.
thought about this, and that person is Clive
Oh,
Barker. You know,
you mean at this point in the movie, like
at
when
this
this
point
movie
in
was
the
made,
like,
those
yeah,
questions already
yeah,
were
like
aware.
Clive
Yeah,
Barker knows in his head what he thinks the Cenobites are, whereas
he
I didn't
does,
get the
and
sense that anybody knew what the Immortals were. And so yeah, there was a tacked on explanation about aliens later, and sure, why not? But like the point is like somebody thought through the implications of this story and
yeah,
came up with a backstory that made sense. And do you see
yeah.
it all here? No, but like you could just tell
But you
from the
get it fed out
craftsmanship,
to you over the course of the next couple of movies, and
right?
so you do find out some of this stuff.
And this is why the further Hellraiser movies are good and why the further Highlander movies are not, is because the further Highlander movies are just pasting on explanations ex post facto.
Sure, sure. That makes sense. That makes sense. The Yeah. So, and I like the thing about pain being pleasurable. That's first of all a thing that exists, right? People are sadomasochists, and they do get so. To have that be the exploration of human experience, the furthest reaches of experience are to experience pain on purpose, so painful that it starts to feel good, or vice versa. Like, I thought that was a very it's an interesting concept.
So let me ask you this.
And I think, by the way, to answer your question though, I think the nature of the Cenobites does reflect their particular sin,
Okay.
probably, but
Okay.
not necessarily. And if how many sins are there? If you're going to boil it down, it's probably one of the seven deadly sins, but it's not like, I don't think that there are seven Cenobites for each sin, that kind of thing.
Okay. So here's the thing that, I think a lot of people found out later, right? That's sort of super well known now, right? Is that Clive Barker is gay. Could this story have been written by a straight person? Like somebody who was not a closeted gay man in the 80s. Although I don't know how closeted he was, or whether it was just that like nobody was publicizing it. Like
Yeah,
I think he
exactly.
was personally out, but that, like
Yeah, I
nobody
don't
was going
know.
gay author Clive Barker. Uh, you know.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I think that writers in general of sci-fi and horror tend to be I don't know. I'd be interested in the numbers on this, but I feel like they tend to be non-cis, straight male writers. There's generally something about them that puts them out of that powerful group, societally powerful group. And so there a lot of people who write horror and sci-fi probably come from outside of that, and are looking at it from that viewpoint. But I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
So this movie was made for about $1 million, just under $1 million. I think Wikipedia says 1 million, but I think it was actually like 900,000, and it made just under $15 million at the box office, so it was respectable. One interesting
Who did
thing.
sorry. Do you know
Oh,
like who did the effects on this? Is this somebody that like I would know later? You know.
like the visual effects
Yeah,
or the
because
special effects?
the special effects are the gore and
Yeah, the
the
makeup
flesh,
effects,
the
which were
makeup effects
really
are
good, man.
I mean those makeup effects on the Cenobites hold up 100% today. Like
Also on Frank, like Frank coming back to life,
on Frank coming back to
and
life,
like
yeah.
seeing him as a person, seeing a
Yeah.
person without their skin, and like
Yeah,
that
so
looks like a person without their
I'm
skin.
curious. Does this is this somebody that I would know later? Like, is this
Not that
like
I am aware of.
okay?
No, but the interesting thing that I found about it was that it was actually filmed originally in England. And so, as I also rewatched it, I found myself to be annoyed at some of the bad dubbing, right? And some of the bad, like you were like, well, that voice doesn't sound like it came from that person. Like, what's going on here? And it's because it didn't. Originally, they were filmed with British actors, and the studio wanted to set it in Baltimore or wherever, Boston, I guess it was. And so
Yeah, it was like New England-ish. I don't know if
because
it
they
was super
changed the
specific.
setting from England to Boston, they had to redub all the dialogue that they'd shot with these British actors. So I thought that was
I
fairly
did not know
interesting.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Also interesting because I love Andrew Robinson as an actor based on his work on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He played Garrick in Deep Space Nine.
Yes, yes, he did. Sorry, who is Andrew
And
Robinson in this? Was he the
oh, he
main dude?
was
The
no, he was
the
Larry.
husband?
He was the husband.
The husband. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I found
Something,
myself
audience, something you're going to learn over the course of this podcast is I am atrocious with character names. Really, really bad. I will watch a TV show for years and not be able to recall someone's name. So, so I apologize for describing people by their role rather than their actual name or their
no
character name,
worries.
but I'm really, really bad with them. So, anyways,
A lot of people are the same way, so I don't think you have to worry too much about that. But but yeah, so I found myself not loving his performance in this movie all that much. And it wasn't until, and we're going to spoil this, but it's a 35-year-old movie. It wasn't until Frank takes his skin, and then you're watching Frank in Larry's body, and he does this complete transformation as a character, and you're like, oh, I
yeah.
see
Yeah,
what's
no, that was all deliberate. It's funny, right? Because I think one of the things that doesn't super duper hold up is how did he get this woman to begin with? Right? Like what attracted this because he's in a relationship with this woman and she's his soon to be bride when Frank seduces her. But Larry is just a nebbish, right? Like he's just
but he's a nice guy. He's a
he's a
good guy, and he's probably got a good job, and it's
I
easy
would have
to
I would have liked just maybe one scene where we get a little bit of a sense of why Larry and Sheila, Sheila Julia,
Julia.
why Larry and Julia are together. That's all.
And
that's
and
and that's
Larry
the
is
that is the
and Larry has
minorest
a
of
daughter
nitpicks.
from a previous relationship, by the way.
Right.
Remember?
Right. And that I get, right? Like that's fine. Like I'm not saying Larry would never be with a woman. It's just we start this movie with Julia very sad, and we don't know why, right? And then it becomes that story is told over the course of the movie. I would have liked because Larry is he's like actively unlikable for most of the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
I would have liked a scene that shows something about some him being charming or something because there's like anti-chemistry between him and Julia.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I actually didn't particularly like Julia in this movie either, but I do like her better in the next movie, and I'm glad because watching them back to back, it gives me a little bit more appreciation for her performance in this movie.
She's pretty restrained, right? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, honestly, she's got a lot. There's a lot of B word energy in her in this movie.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like that's understandable, right? She's being dragged off to this, drafty old mansion.
But I wasn't sure if it was
It is
because of
clear
that
that
or if it
she's,
was because of
it's
this '80s actress energy. Like it could have easily been
sure.
'80s actress syndrome.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was.
No, I'm gonna thank you for getting me to watch this movie because I wouldn't have watched it without the assignment. Because, like I said,
Great.
I don't generally watch horror movies, and it's fantastic. It's
Yeah.
really this one I felt deserves its reputation.
That's great, and I will say that in for the most part, I have enjoyed most of the sequels to this franchise as well. So Hellraiser 2, Hellbound is I rewatched that this week as well, and it wasn't as good as I remembered it, but it was definitely interesting and adds some complexity. The third movie, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, with Terry Farrell, who is also from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Oh, I know Terry Farrell.
Yeah, really like that movie quite a bit. And then the fourth one sucks, but then like the next ones were all like direct to video, and I think they did something like 9 of them before they got rid of Doug Bradley as Pinhead. And they I like most of them. And I love. Can we just say for a second talk about Doug Bradley as the villain? Like that is easily a role that a less capable actor wouldn't have made as interesting.
Yeah.
And in fact, we've proven it because the recent remake of Hellraiser on Hulu, I think it is, has a different actor as Pinhead, and she is not nearly as interesting. She plays it very blandly and blankly, and it's not at all interesting to me.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, there is something about Doug Bradley as Pinhead that's very compelling, right? Like because the point is these demons have to be summoned. I'm just going to call them demons. They have to be summoned, right? They don't just show up. And
right.
with Doug Bradley as Pinhead, you understand why you might summon them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and interestingly enough, a little backstory that I was reading about. Originally, the Cenobites all had kind of an equal number of lines, but because the Butterball Cenobite and the Chatterbox Cenobite couldn't talk through their makeup, they had to basically give their lines to the other two, and most of them went to Pinhead, and so he became then the lead Cenobite,
right?
And so, which is his title in the thing, lead Cenobite.
And honestly, it's funny, right? Like I can imagine, and I haven't seen any of the rest of this. I can imagine a world where one of the other Cenobites takes the lead for a different person whose desires are different. Right? That Pinhead for Frank is the lead Cenobite because he's the one whose predilections line up with Frank.
That I could easily see that as in a novel. I would see that, but when it's movies, when the audience get used to this character and like attaches themselves to him in such a way, I think that's infeasible. But
I just mean like
in
a backstory kind of way.
Yeah, for sure. And there is backstory for Pinhead if you want to look into the rest of the movies. So let's give it a rating.
All right, I'm giving this one a 9. I would love to say 10, but I want to leave room for I loved it. I really
I might have not given it that much that high of a rating. I probably would have gone like maybe 8. Very good, but maybe there's not without its flaws.
Sure,
put it that way.
Sure, but I feel like it was a really, really fantastic movie. Really liked it.
Nice.
I felt like it was paced really well. I felt like there was enough gore to make my stomach turn, right? But then there wasn't so much that I was like, oh, I'm just turning this off, right?
Good.
Yeah, I really, really liked it.
Nice. I'm gonna give the Ghost playlist that you gave me probably 7 out of 10.
Okay.
If only because I would have enjoyed it more with. I didn't need the kind of religious storyline that they built off of it. I think their talents as musicians don't need that, and it detracted for me a bit.
Sure.
And then also the audio, the mixing on the vocals. I would have liked to have been hearing some of that.
More words. It's funny to you and me. The religious imagery is like obviously fake, right? Like it's obviously like we're trying to wind you up, right?
Maybe.
And it's fascinating. I've become aware recently that there are people that take Ghost dead seriously.
That's the thing, and it doesn't seem obvious to me. Like if you say it's obvious and it's that, I get it, but it's
Well,
not
how's
apparent.
this? I would say it's apparent that this person is not actually running a church, right?
Hmm.
And again, I do think you should actually, after we're done here, you should go watch that video that I
I
dropped
will.
in the chat, and then we
I
can
will.
briefly discuss it next week. All right,
All
what do
right.
we have for next
Next
week?
week,
Yeah.
you tell me. You tell me. I'll go.
Okay.
For, I'll make my suggestion off of yours.
So, well, this one's going to be a tough one to make a suggestion off of. Are you familiar with
Oh.
the band Alabama Shakes?
Oh, you know what? I think the name sounds familiar, but that's
Okay.
about it.
Okay. So Alabama Shakes is no longer active, but they came out with an album out of nowhere about 2012 or so called Boys and Girls. Absolutely fantastic album. I've assigned you the whole thing. There's a playlist.
No, great.
I will drop the link to the playlist for you. But
Hmm.
it's really, really good. I would call it roots rock, southern inflected, led by a fantastic guitarist and vocalist named Brittany Howard. I almost called her Brittany Murphy, but that's a different person. Brittany Howard. Real force of nature. I thankfully got to see them live when they were touring this album. All of the musicians are really, really fantastic. Intricate guitar work. She's got a voice, extremely powerful voice. Really good stuff. I hope you'll like it, but either way, I think you should know it. So,
Okay.
Boys and Girls by
Interesting.
Alabama Shakes. So this is
All right.
southern Gothic might be appropriate, or I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what you
All
got.
right. Brilliant. I like it. So, given that, let me ask you two questions. I had another idea first. I'll come back to, but you've seen Interview with a Vampire, right?
The Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I figured you did. Have you seen? And I know that you're familiar with some of Tarantino's work because I think you took me to see Pulp Fiction, didn't you?
In all likelihood, I saw it in the theater a
In
bunch of times.
in
Yeah.
theaters? I feel like I might be we might be a little bit off on age from that, right? Because maybe it was
That
one of
was
my other
when I
friends
was in
who
high
took me to see
school
it.
in theaters.
Yeah,
but I
I think it was
was a
93.
senior. Was it 93?
So I feel like it was, and I don't think we knew each other quite yet.
Yeah.
And I think I
Anyways,
saw it in Wisconsin. But anyway, have you seen, and this is the relation, have you seen Django Unchained?
I have. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I'm not going to do that.
That is
And
very
I certainly
Southern.
won't recommend. I won't recommend Death Proof to you because, ugh.
You don't like Death Proof?
Oh, uh, no, I hated it. Actually, not hated it, but I disliked it. You know what I really hated though was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I was.
That was atrocious.
Oh, thank
Wait,
you.
was that is that the fairy tale one where they're like where they were like, if only people in early Hollywood had been nicer, then people could have
Oh,
come out. Wait, which one? Describe to
no.
me Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was it had Margot Robbie, and it explored the idea of like at some point the uh,
Was it like
Brad
an
Pitt,
was it like an
Leonardo
alternate history one?
DiCaprio. It was an alternate history. So like if what happens if the who was the mass murderer who had the ranch?
Charlie Manson.
Charlie Manson.
That's
Yeah. So
okay. Sorry, no, I have not seen that, but thank you for not assigning it to me. I'm sorry. I was thinking of that
I would
Netflix
never.
wish fulfillment show a couple of years ago. There was it was like an 8 episode or 10 episode show
Oh.
that it was like, well, we know Hollywood is like super heteronormative, cisnormative, but what if they weren't? Like
Oh,
what if
I feel like I heard a little bit about that, but never watched it.
what if some people had just had the courage
It's
to
a Ryan
come out?
Murphy. It's a Ryan Murphy.
It's a
thing, right?
Ryan
Of course
Murphy
it is.
wish fulfillment thing, and it's just total bullshit because it puts all the onus for like fixing Hollywood on the oppressed. Right? It's
Oh,
just
interesting.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, if these people had come out earlier, if Rock Hudson, I think Rock Hudson's a character. If Rock Hudson had just come out when he was an actor, then Hollywood would have been like,
wait,
okay.
wait, wait. Is it that? Is it that, or is it if it had been okay for Rock Hudson to come out?
No, it's very much like, oh,
It's basically saying
if these
his
people had just like, Yeah, it is.
Wow,
I did not.
really?
I was angry when it was over. I was like, "This is bullshit."
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. I might have to check that out just to check it out.
Yeah,
Um,
Mel, you could
all right,
certainly have a
so
different take on it than I did, but I
let's
felt
see.
like it was just like, yeah,
All right, well, I might shift gears here a little bit
okay,
then. Have you seen The Help?
no,
Okay. I think we're going to go with that because it
okay,
has that Southern vibe, and it also is I think it has an Academy Award-winning performance. I think Viola Davis is in it, and some. That's Emma. Emma. No, Emma. What's her
one of
name?
the Emmas.
There's so many. Now you know. Now that you said that, there are so many Emmas. Um, but so this has an absolutely stunning cast. Emma Stone is who I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
Bryce Dallas Howard's in it. Octavia Spencer, Jessica Chastain,
love
Allison
her.
Janney's in it,
Love
and
Octavia Spencer.
it's got so many things. And it basically it's set around the '60s. Has to do with the civil rights movement, and but it took me years to watch it. But when I finally did, I was smitten. So I
Awesome.
think that will be our movie.
Well, thank you very much for the assignment, and thank you for exposing yourself to me.
Well, thanks for exposing yourself to me, Matthew.
That's really great. Well, do you want to wrap it up?
You wrap it up. I started it.
All right. So this has been the Exposing Yourself podcast. I am Matt Runquist,
And I'm Travis Ritchie.
and we're wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care. Bye.